Hello and welcome to Psalm of the Day. It's not only Friday, it's a Fall Fest Friday. And the images you just saw were from last year's Fall Fest. And last year's Fall Fest looked like this. We'll put the map up here on the screen. We spread out over these two fields. So this year's Fall Fest will look a little bit different. And you can see we're on one field and then it spreads out to these other fields behind it. So Lord willing, when you show up at Fall Fest, it'll feel pretty much the same. We'll see how it all goes. We could definitely use your prayers for all the setup that starts at noon. But I'm looking forward to seeing so many members of my church family serving together, having fun with the kids together. And I'm excited even about what God's going to do to draw people to church. This weekend, we're starting the Who is Jesus series. It'll be the next 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks of November, if you can believe it or not. But Jesus is going to ask the disciples in Caesarea Philippi, who do people say that I am? And then he's going to say, but who do you say that I am? And so, who is Jesus? I would love for everybody to come and hear this study from the Gospel of Mark. We're going to be doing it all three services. So I'll be there out by the front, by the balloon arch in the front of Fall Fest, where there's the photo booth. I'll be talking to as many people as I can, encouraging them to come and see Jesus this weekend. Now, you saw a couple of images there of Scripture of the Ride, which tied into Isaiah that we were reading last year from the prophets. Let me just tell you, Psalm of the Ride is going to be so much better. And Psalm of the Ride is actually based on today's Psalm, Psalm 56. And it takes you, Lord willing, you will actually ride through the city of Gath. And so in Psalm 56, we get one of these settings. And the settings take us back to 1 Samuel, which is why I've got my Dale Ralph Davis commentary on 1 Samuel. I'm still reading from the man, the myth, the legend, Dale Ralph Davis. And in fact, let's put our chart up because 3 of our Psalms this week all had a setting in 1 Samuel. The evil man Doeg, how he betrayed David and turned against him, how the Ziphites gave David up to Saul. And now, if you go to Psalm 56, in the setting here, it says, when the Philistines seized him in Gath. Well, Gath is in 1 Samuel 21, 10 to 15. So I would encourage you to go read, starting in 1 Samuel 21, and read a few chapters, but specifically 1 Samuel 21, 10 to 15. Is when he is in Gath. Now, let's think this through. In 1 Samuel 21, David is totally on the run. So we have to get this context in our mind. The king, the army are trying to kill you. And so you're on the run from the government, okay, fleeing for your life. You go to the priest, Ahimelech. He gives you bread. He also gives you Goliath's sword. That seems encouraging, but where are you going to go next? David is so desperate that he goes to Gath. Gath is a Philistine city, so it's not in Israel. So he's trying to get away from Israel. So he goes into the Philistine territory. Gath, we know from 1 Samuel 17:4, when Goliath is introduced, Gath is Goliath's hometown. So think this through. You're so on the run. You're so desperate that someone just gave you Goliath's sword, which you're the guy who killed Goliath, and you flee to Goliath's hometown, to the town where he grew up, where you killed him and you have his sword. What could go wrong, right? I mean, you can feel the desperation of David to even end up in the city of Gath, Goliath's hometown. And so they catch him, they bring him before the king, and David resorts to pretending to be mad, acting like he has lost his mind so that they will let him go. Because even the enemies of David, even the other nation of the Philistines, they know the line that Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his tens of thousands. And they're like, this guy's our biggest enemy. And the king's like, he looks crazy to me. And so they let David go. And in response to being still alive and not being killed by the Philistines, David writes Psalm 56. And there are three things that I want to bring to your attention about this psalm. His enemies of King Saul, Doeg, all the people of Israel that are turning against him, they have chased him into his real enemies, the other nation of the Philistines. But God has delivered him. And so I don't know like how it's been for you in your life. I don't know if any of us have been betrayed on the level of David, where your own king and that you've won great victories for, your own country, your own army that you've led into battle, they all turn against you and they're trying to kill you. To some degree, though, we've all been betrayed. We've all thought people would be loyal, and then they kind of turned against us. We all have enemies that we might fear, or scenarios, worst case scenarios, what if scenarios that we might be afraid of happening. And so David is going through this brutal betrayal and ending up in places where he's literally afraid for his life. That's the context that we have to see. And when God delivers him, he does this idea to kind of act crazy, and they let him go. But David doesn't act like he saved himself. David acts like God really saves. And he wants everybody to know what God did for him. So sometimes when people, they get healed of a disease, or people get their prayers answered, people, they get their job back, they get provided for, you can see they act like I did something. Look at me. Like you would imagine David would say, well, I was very clever to act mad, and then they let me go. No, he doesn't say anything like that. He's like, wow, look how good God is. God saved my life. And he says this line in verse 3 and 4 of Psalm 56, when I am afraid, I put my trust in you. And David was definitely afraid in this scenario of 1 Samuel 21. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you, and God, whose word I praise. In God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? So notice this line here, in God, whose word I praise. And notice how he repeats this down in verses 10 and 11. So this is the refrain or the chorus of this psalm. In God, whose word I praise. And then the second time he says it, in Yahweh, whose word I praise. So he doubles down on it by inserting the name Yahweh, God's personal name, in there. In God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? So God has said things. And David, he trusts in what God says. David believes that God will do what he said in his word. And so he praises God's word because he's certain that it's true. He's certain that God is going to come through. He knows that God is faithful. And so he's just, I praise God's word. I knew God would do it because God said he would do it. So remember that David thinks you're going to be blessed if you meditate on the law of Yahweh. And remember, we learned at our church, the Torah, the law, is where we get our theology. We called it Torahology, right? It reveals who God is. And David believes in who God is through his word, and he praises God through his word. He doesn't have to be afraid. He trusts in Yahweh. He trusts in God. So our faith is built on the Bible. As we hear the word of Christ, faith comes from hearing. David's saying that here. Like, I didn't have to be afraid. I knew God would come through because he said he would in his promises to me. So that's a big chorus. In God, whose word I praise. What are we learning about God from his word so we don't have to be afraid? We can trust in him. Now there's a beautiful verse in Psalm 56:8. And if you're not familiar with this verse, it's an honor for me to introduce it to you because it says, you have kept count of my tossings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? What a picture here. Like Like David's tossing around. Maybe you think of somebody not knowing which way to go. Maybe you think of somebody having a hard time sleeping. And God is keeping count of all his tossings. God is collecting his tears and putting them in a bottle. God is writing down what's happening to David in a book. What beautiful thoughts that express the intimate care that God has for his people. You know, you think of watching a show and how over the episodes of some show you might really start to care about the characters that you see portrayed. No, this is like God's watching us and God cares about us. Like this idea that every time I would cry, God would collect the tears and God would keep track of all the things that are going on in my life, like he's paying attention to them, like he really cares about them. See, this is the thing, as I talk to people and they express to me their anxieties and their worries and their fears, there's a lot of what if about what could happen in the future, a lot of worst case scenarios that live rent free in people's minds. And one thing I'm always trying to say to those folks is, hey, whatever you think's gonna happen tomorrow, do you remember that God's still gonna be there tomorrow? Do you know that whatever the what if is that you're concerned about, do you know God will be there with you through it? Let's say the worst case scenario happens. Do you know that God is there? Like all the fears that people have, it's like a future that has no God in it. That's what I find as they describe it to me. It's like God has abandoned them, or God's not going to be faithful to his word, or come through or save the day. But that's not who God is. God does care. What have we to fear? What can man do to us? If God is for us, who can be against us? He's got the hairs of our head all numbered. You know, God cares about us. We're his creation. If he sent his son Jesus to die for us, if he gave us his son, how will he not also give us all things? See, I think so often we underestimate how much God cares. And maybe we would always want somebody in our life to care. Like if we cried, they would care about it. They would love us. They would be there for us. God is that one we all need to be there for us. That's what this verse is saying. David's saying, I was tossing around like a madman. I was crying out with tears. And God, he collected my tears. He counted all my tossings. God knows everything that's going on with me, like he's writing it down in a book. So, man, if you're having a hard time and you're crying, think about God putting your tears in a bottle. What a comforting thought that is. And then the last verse of this psalm, I already saw some of you quoting it in the live chat. I'm so encouraged by those of you who join us live. I'm so encouraged by those of you who join us later and you leave comments and you let us know. But in verse 13, we have, for you have delivered, you have rescued, you have saved my soul from death, yes, my feet from falling, that I may walk before God in the light of life. You kept me alive. You preserved my life. I could have been dead, and you saved me. You rescued me. You delivered me. Now, there's another psalm that is written after David's time in Gath. And the reason I'm wanting to make sure you know about Gath, the hometown of Goliath, the Philistine city where the king was, is because I'm about to give away a couple of fast passes straight to Psalm of the Ride. So don't go anywhere, everybody, because I'm about to give away. Some of you are going to win. I think there's going to be a line for Psalm of the Ride tonight, not for you. You just fast pass all right up there, right express to the front. But Psalm 34, you might want to go also check out Psalm 34, and you'll see that it was also written after David feigned madness in the presence of the Philistine king. And in Psalm 34, 3 times it uses this same word, delivered. So you can see that David is making it very clear, God saved me. He's saying it here in Psalm 56. He's saying it in Psalm 34. He was so inspired by how God saved him from the city of Gath when they seized him, when he was arrested and under Philistine custody. He's so inspired by how God delivered him. He writes 2 psalms of response, of praise, of thanksgiving. And in Psalm 34, verse 4, he says that God delivered him from all his fears. What a beautiful phrase, that Yahweh delivered him from all his fears. In verse 17 of Psalm 34, he says that God will deliver the righteous who cry for help. He will deliver them out of all their troubles. And in Psalm 34, verse 19, he says, yeah, the righteous are going to have many afflictions, but Yahweh delivers them out of them all. So David doesn't just say, hey, let me tell you how he delivered me. He says he can deliver you. If you're one of God's righteous people who trust in his son Jesus for salvation, and you're seeking to order your way rightly, you're seeking to walk in the ways of God, and you have the light of life, well, guess what? Our God will not abandon you. Our God will not betray you. You could be on the run from your king and the army and your own government. You could be in enemy territory, and they could have you in custody. But if God is with you, he can deliver you out of all of your afflictions. He can save you out of all your troubles. See, sometimes when it feels impossible, sometimes when it feels like something bad is going to happen, that's when I start to get excited. What's God about to do? How's he going to save us this time? We're supposed to pray, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, rescue us, save us. See, I don't want to live my life thinking I can do it. I want to live my life knowing God will do it. He will save. He will deliver. Remember when David was on the run? Remember when David was in Gath? Remember how God delivered him out of all his fears, out of all his troubles, out of all of his afflictions. Yeah, I believe God's going to do that for me too, because God cares for me. He cares for me today, and he cares for me in all of my what-if scenarios for tomorrow. So I hope you're encouraged. Is anyone out there encouraged by Psalm 56? What great psalms. What great prayers David is praying to inspire us. And it's so cool that we can go to 1 Samuel and we can see the original context of what was happening and then see David's response of celebration to God's deliverance. I hope Gath is a place that you and I will remember. David, he acted mad in Gath because he was so desperate for his life, but God delivered him, and we've got two great Psalms to read. And I hope all of us will remember Gath after it is portrayed for us in Psalm of the Ride at Fall Fest tonight. And so we're giving away 2 fast passes right now to Psalm of the Ride. And I hope everybody will be able to check out Psalm of the Ride. I'm just excited to have a fun family night at Fall Fest with our entire church. And here we go. This is Zeke Thomas. Zeke Thomas, you just got a fast pass. You're just going to the front of the line. You just let them know, yeah, I do this thing called Psalm of the Day. Now, I need to warn everyone, before I give this second one away, I'm pretty sure there are life-size cardboard cutouts of the Psalm of the Day crew. So I thought we weren't going to have a lot of scary stuff at Fall Fest, but there's life-size cutouts of me and the guys here from Psalm of the Day. So I just brace yourself. Just wanted to warn you. This was not my idea, okay? Here we go. The second fast pass for Psalm of the Ride tonight at Fall Fest is going to Diana Urbina. Diana, congratulations. You and Zeke Thomas are going to the front of the line, and I hope to see everybody at Fall Fest, or if you're watching this video later, I hope that you are encouraged about God putting your tears in his bottle, because it's Psalm of the Day. It's time to know God.